This is going to be an amazing episode of the Maverick Makers Podcast. We have Emily O'Brien, who is an entrepreneur and founder of Comeback Snacks, a specialty popcorn company that challenges the status quo. After being sentenced to a 4-year jail term following an abusive relationship, Emily set out on a mission to transform herself and make her time in jail as meaningful as possible. Using her entrepreneurial pre-sentence background and experience, Emily birthed the idea for Comeback Snacks, formerly Cons and Kernels, a popcorn brand that uses high-quality, health-conscious ingredients to create unique flavors inspired by the ones Emily developed in prison. Emily is determined to help remove the stigma surrounding people with prior convictions, as well as give them opportunities for reintegration through training, empowerment, and education. She truly is a maverick. Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Maverick Makers Podcast. I am thrilled to have Emily O'Brien on the show. She is the CEO and founder of Comeback Snacks. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Yes, excited.
Good stuff. I can't wait for everyone to hear your story because it is pretty amazing. So let's start with the question that I always start off with, which is, what does the word maverick mean to you?
Well, number one, I watched a lot of Dragon's Den and Shark Tank or whatever. Mark Cuban owns the Dallas Mavericks. So that reminded me of it. And then it's also something that thinks differently, does differently, and pushes the boundaries.
Perfect answer. Love Mark Cuban. How can you not? He's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that definition. Yeah. And you have a pretty movie-worthy, I would say, story and journey. Can you take us through how that whole story started and where you are now?
Yeah, of course. So it's actually been quite a while now, it seems like. It'll actually be 10 years next year.
Wow.
Which time has just flown by. But I ended up on a trip with someone that I would not want to say seeing. He was more of like a close friend. Some of the media calls him my boyfriend. He was not my boyfriend. He was just someone that I'd gotten to know over, 8 or 9 months. And he was sober. I was actually struggling with substances at the time because I was going through, my family was going through a really horrible, horrible divorce. And, at that age, people were telling me, oh, you're not allowed to be sad. And so I kind of covered it up with substances. And I'm not going to, I wasn't an angel. I drank. Okay. Prior to that, it's not like I didn't drink or anything. I definitely went to university and drank and had fun times drinking, but it went from celebrating to medicating at that point. And I was just in a very dark place. But I still had to I had a company at the time and keep my shit together. But I really wasn't keeping my shit together. And when I met him through my work, he was kind of like this knight in shining armor, I guess you could say. But there were some red flags, but red flags we don't see. Red flags are like white flags that turn red, right? And so he brings me on this trip, and he's allegedly sober, and we go on this trip, and then he starts drinking. And the third day in, he's wasted in the morning, and he basically tells me, oh, we're actually here to smuggle drugs back, and I'm in a lot of debt. And when he booked the trip, he had sent them my passport information to book these tickets. And that was our responsibility, was to bring back these drugs to settle the debt that he owed. And I was really, really bad at it. I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to go home. It was nothing that, I had no experience. And so I had experience traveling, and that's when I kind of realized that he kind of groomed me the whole time. But there was no getting out of the country without doing it. And, there's a lot of armchair experts that, initially were like, oh, you should have done this. You should have called the Canadian embassy. They will not be able to get to you fast enough. There's so much more harm that can be done prior to that to you. And when you're in a house in the middle of nowhere in St. Lucia, you just have to get out of there and do what they want. The embassy is not coming to save you. I'm sorry. People think they're going to come down this big jet. It doesn't work like that. There's stories about people trying to get out of situations, but it does not happen like that. So, and I kind of had figured this out, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to do my best. I'm going to be bad at it. Was bad at it. Got arrested with 2 kilograms of cocaine strapped to my body with him And I spent 2.5 years on house arrest, very angry and very upset and very misunderstood. But I also looked on the rest of my life prior to that. I knew that I was a good person and I was going to fight for the person that I knew that I was. And in prison, I met a lot of people who were just like me. And we didn't want the stigma of incarceration or having a criminal record to define the rest of our lives. So one thing that connected us in prison was not just our physical environment, but it was food, and prison was popcorn was a popular prison snack. And so we would kind of make our own little recipes on popcorn, or we'd make cakes for each other on each other's birthdays. And it just brought a big sense of community. And one of the subjects of conversation that came up was employment after incarceration. And I knew that I had a company. I knew that I was ready to fight for my life, and help other people fight for theirs. And I just had this idea to start a popcorn company in prison where I could employ formerly incarcerated. In a nutshell, that's how it started.
Wow, that's a heck of a story. So you said you had a company before this all went down?
Yeah.
Yes. What company was it?
It was a social media company. And that was what I started in 2012. But prior to that, I had tons of marketing experience. I went to the University of Guelph, but I actually went for international development. But I always loved marketing. So while I was at school, I had all these marketing jobs. And after I graduated, I got a sales job. But through my degree, I was able to travel and kind of work these nonprofit jobs around the world. So I kind of had a mix of lots of different skills.
Hey, wow, interesting. And you said you were on house arrest and you were in prison. Is that right?
Yeah, I spent 2.5 years on house arrest waiting for the case to go through. And then I pled guilty and got 4 years.
Okay. Wow. That's crazy. And I can imagine what you're saying is that you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't know what's going to happen. And basically it's, do you choose your life, which is highly possible that it could be ended if you don't do what these people say, or harm or whatever, or yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. What do you think? Yeah. What do you think your biggest lessons that you learned in prison? What do you think? What did you learn?
I learned that I think we are all born good, unless we are born with a distinct mental illness where our brain chemistry is just off, and we're born like that. There are some offenders that are born where their brain chemistry is just off, right? You see it with serial killers all the time. But the majority of women in prison are not bad people, and they just were in a situation where they needed to get out of, or it was poverty related, or it was addiction related. It was all, and part of those things also come from trauma. So trauma is kind of the foundation of crime. And that's what I learned. I learned that, I had more common with these people than I ever thought. And I actually had a lot in common with people outside of prison. And there are so many actual similarities. I also learned that you don't need all the bells and whistles to be creative. I was actually the most creative when people perceived that I had nothing, but I really had a lot of creativity and a lot of freedom because I had the ability to kind of learn and build things as I wanted to. So, and I had the freedom from technology, which was good, right? So you kind of learn to learn in other ways, and you learn to engage in other ways, and you learn to build in the absence of technology.
How the heck do you build a brand in prison?
Well, you read a lot of books. You listen to a lot of stories. You take down a lot of facts. You write a journal. You write letters. You write letters to the authors of those books. And you make connections with people that are supporting your reintegration. So I made connections with all the volunteers and stuff that came in as well. So, yeah. Just starts with an idea, with a purpose.
Wow. That's amazing. Yep. And how did you come up with cons and kernels? How did that start? And what need do you think you were filling?
So Cons and Kernels is actually the result of a survey that I took in prison. I kind of asked people around what the name should be. So it was a collective choice. And that's how basically that we had a list, and I printed the list out on a piece of paper because we had a computer lab where people were taking classes. And then I just asked, because I'd kind of brought this up to a number of people in there, including staff members. And that was the final selection.
Amazing. And you said popcorn was a popular snack. So were you filling a need, do you think, in prison, or were you also thinking of the outside world in terms of the marketability of your product?
Absolutely. I knew that popcorn was something that everyone recognized around the world. So I was taking a food that everyone recognized and making bold flavors with a bold mission. And at the raw cost at the time, not now, the raw cost of the time,
Right.
we're pretty affordable.
Fair. Why did you rebrand to Comeback Snacks, and what's the story with that?
So 2 reasons. Number one was after it came out and I launched the brand, Colonel's kind of heard about it, and we were actually getting mentored by someone at Colonel. So it was like, oh my gosh, Emily, I didn't even realize this. Like, the word Colonel's is actually, we have like copyrights on that. Oh. That was the first one. Right. But he was a nice guy. He wasn't like, he's like, you guys might want to, change. But it's a good problem to have when you're, ruffling feathers. And then the other reason was that we felt after launching it into the market, it actually alienated us because, we weren't just people in prison making popcorn. We were people making comebacks in our lives. And so we wanted to kind of make it more inclusive and more of a broader forward-thinking name. And we changed the word kernels to snacks so that we could expand into more categories.
Love it. Amazing. And where are you now with the company? I would love to hear where you are.
Yeah. So we are in like 700 stores across the country.
Where?
Our big major grocery chain is Farm Boy, but there have been so many individuals like in the independent stores, like coffee shops, breweries, wineries, event planners, that have helped to build us to where this was. And now we actually just got into Madison Square Garden. So in terms of distribution, we ship all over Canada and the US. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And in terms of, yeah, thank you. It's fun. And in terms of mission, the mission related, we do hire within, and then, but our business models, we don't have our own factory. We have a co-packer. So what we do is to hire people when we can. So we have a street team that is essentially all people with records. And then we serve as it's like a platform for people seeking work with records. And we have relationships with a lot of other job boards that do inclusive hiring, and as well as employers.
Beautiful. That's an amazing model. Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you believe everyone should be given a second chance?
Absolutely, because we've all needed one. It doesn't matter who you are in the world. There's no such thing as a perfect person. And so we've all needed second chances.
You got it. Absolutely. You answered what's your mission, unless you wanted to expand on it.
Well, yeah. So when I started it, the initial idea was hire as many people as I could with records. And then it's like, okay, well, we can't even hire yourself. So you have to think of ways to expand that mission and belief. And so that's why, I do seminars on inclusive hiring with other companies. I do a lot of talks. And then I also connect people, anyone that reaches out, with all the employers and the resources that I know as well. And then we also do outreach to employers that maybe aren't fair chance hiring or inclusive hiring, and teach them the benefits as well. So yeah, it's direct hiring, and then helping people find work at other locations, because there's people from all over Canada, right, that kind of hear about us. And then it's also the education and advocacy element.
Interesting. That's a whole other level in terms of inclusive hiring that I don't think people even understand what that means. So I think this is a great educating.
Oh, well, thank you.
No, because I think people are thinking about diversity and culture, and you wouldn't even think about that in a way.
Yeah, and just like highlighting like the, all the myths that come around hiring people with records. Of course, there are people that come out of prison that it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to have food and shelter before you can work, right? So it's knowing who to hire and when they're ready to be hired, and taking them into consideration, because there's so many people that I met that had so many incredible talents that were just going to go to waste. And it also, if we just continue to ignore these people or condemn them after incarceration, it just can cycle back to like a life of crime, right?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Wow. And who do you think your customer is? Like, who's buying Comeback Snacks?
We have such a wide range. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. It's like people that, young kids, millennials, it's Gen Zs. I would say the bulk is like 35 to like 60-year-olds generation because, they've seen themselves go through something or they've seen their kids go through something. So they relate to the story. And also we are a more premium product. So it's people that have, medium to higher incomes, but we are developing like not a higher, but we are developing like an additional size because we want to be accessible for everyone, but it's just because we want to be a premium product because that's how we stand out.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And do you think people are buying because of the story, because of the product, or both? And what do you think the split is?
That's a question I've never got before. I would say that people hear about the story first, but then you have to knock the product out of the park, right? So that's why you have to have both.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
And so that's why we didn't want to launch just like regular flavors because it is a competitive industry, a very competitive industry. And if you want to set yourself apart, you have to go bold with your flavors, go bold and gourmet.
What's the boldest flavor you have?
Well, we have a lemon meringue pie, caramel.
Sounds delicious. That's amazing.
Yeah, and then we also have a triple cheese. So not just regular cheese, but triple. So 3 different kinds of cheeses.
You got to really like cheese. Wow. It's good. Tell us about your retail location. Is that still in existence? And how does that work?
That one, I actually shut it down a while ago because everyone that went there thought that I would be there. Like they thought like I just ran the store. And then it was also really hard to find staffing for it. So no, I built it. I made it. It's like a mini museum. It was a very fun project. But then I also moved out of Hamilton about a year ago. So, but it was great that it served a great purpose. And it was, there was a lot of media coverage for it. I had, MPs coming to see it. And just to know that I could build it myself and I furnished it all myself. I had like art in there from different people in prison. I had police collectors items. It was just a really fun thing to build. And a great way to build awareness around the brand.
That sounds amazing. Wow. Do you think your experience allowed you to become the Maverick you are today?
Oh, absolutely. And I wouldn't, people, it's like, oh, would you take about you? The harm that I caused my family, right? Because they were innocent victims in this case. Like I didn't have any victims because they're the only victims and I had a lot of work to do. And so that would be the only thing that I would take back would be the stress and like the sadness and the worry and the fear that I put on them. And that was also one of my motivating factors to be different, but also be the same person that I was.
What do they think of you now?
Oh, we're best friends. Hi, Mom. Yeah, it's good. And it's just good to see, like they always believed in me, but I still had work to do. I had to work on myself, right? With the substances and all that stuff. So, I didn't get off easy. Definitely not. Legal fees were hefty, and so was the emotional pain that I put on them.
Wow. Who inspires you?
My mom. My mom, and actually, this is a crazy thing, but it's my dogs do. I have 2 chow chows, and they taught me a lot about boundaries and not letting everyone into your life, and having good intuition about the right people. And standing up for that intuition and those boundaries. Because they're, they look cute. My dogs are really cute. They look like bears, but you could go too close to them and they know when something's off, right? So it's like, they taught me a lot. And that's it. I guess that's not really inspiring, but like, it's kind of a different way of learning.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that's great. I think a lot of people don't have boundaries. Or allow people to push the boundaries. So I think that's a really great lesson. And why not? Why can't they inspire you? What do you think your greatest gift is?
Well, some people say it's the gift of gab, but I think I find humor in everything. Even when I was in prison, I found ways to laugh and learn. So this isn't to say I didn't find the thing a joke. That's definitely not the case, but you have to be able to find joy and humor and be able to laugh at things. And I think, that's what'll actually make you live the longest life is being able to find humor. You can't just be sad and feel like a victim all the time or be mad and live in denial. Like life's too short for that.
Absolutely. Were you ever scared in prison?
No, I was scared when I was on house arrest for a bit though, because I just lost hundreds of thousands of someone else's drugs.
Right.
They weren't mine. So, then again, it wasn't my fault and he got caught too. So, there's a lot of intricacies to that story where, I think we could have been called, like the drug cartel people could have just called the airport on us so that a bigger load could go through. But it's like a small amount when it comes to the drug smuggling world. So, yeah. But I spent a lot of time being very paranoid. Absolutely. But when I went to prison, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Because I knew that if I was going to prison, then probably just people like me. And I was going to meet people that I could learn from as well. And that's exactly who I met.
Great outlook. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I am ready for this round.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Here we go. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Nice. Fact or fiction?
Fact.
Makes sense. Introvert or extrovert?
As a kid, I was an introvert. And I think to like a great extent, I still am. But I love the extrovert tendencies that I have. So I don't know. Is there still such thing as one or the other anymore?
No. True. Favorite book of all time?
Oh, The Misfit Economy. And it's all about how like pirates, gangsters, and hackers and all these informal entrepreneurs actually have a lot of talent. But it would do the world a whole lot of good if they were put to the right use.
Wow. I'll have to read that one. Sounds amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your life's motto?
Just keep laughing. What's that?
Beautiful. What's going to be written on your tombstone?
See you in your next life. I'll see you in my next life.
I love it. Definitely the humor. I love it. That's amazing. One piece of advice you would give to someone who's struggling or in trouble?
That one? I would say it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad for a bit. But you can't dwell in sadness forever because it will eat you alive. Right. And no one's life is worth being sad their whole life. Like no one deserves that.
Powerful. Okay. How do you want to change the world?
1 second chance at a time.
Love it. Finally, what's next?
What's next? Well, we actually just raised some capital. So this whole year is about deploying that capital, growing bigger, creating more second chances, working with more fair chance employers. And I optioned my movie rights and we found a producer. So stay tuned for a little popcorn film.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Wow. Well, thank you, Emily, so much for this conversation. It was so inspiring. I know that our listeners and viewers will take so much from it. You're an inspiration. You're a laugh. And I think you're absolutely right. You have to laugh at life because that's all you have, really.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you have. I can't wait to see the movie.
Yes, it'll probably be a year or two, couple more years, but we've been working on the script for like 3 years. So
congrats.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks again. And I can't wait for it to all come to fruition for you.
Well, thank you so much.
The Maverick Makers Podcast is sponsored by Maverick Makers Content Creation Collective. We fuel your content pipeline through video, photography, design, and editorial. Let's connect to your audiences and make more sales. Learn more at maverickmakersco.com.